Hi, welcome to the ACA Executive Summit. My name is Isaac, and I'm your host today. Thank you for being here today. Can you go ahead and give yourself a big round of applause? Thank you. So, I'm really excited today for what we're going to do. We are going to have a good conversation with our friend Doc Bates. Can we give him a round of applause as well? Yeah, so a few minutes, earlier today, I talked with Doc Bates, and he has a very interesting story, and I'll let him tell us the story. So just to kick it off, I have a question for you. All of us want to know about you. There's been a lot of buzz about Doc. You know, when I heard the name Doc, I thought it meant doctor. I thought it's just, the short form of doctor, but I figured that's your name, DOC. So who is Doc Bates?
Who is
are
Doc
you?
Bates? I come from a really small town down in South Arkansas, and my grandfather's name was actually Doc. And so it's a kind of a family nickname, and then whenever I grew up and came of age, I took the name Doc because I found out that William didn't look good on a billboard. So that's why I'm Doc.
Awesome. And the next question for you is, what drives you? I know you've done a lot of things. Tell us a little bit about you, your career path, and what you've done up to now.
Well, thank you. I think a lot of what drives me is people telling me what I can't do in life. Yeah, so when I was a kid, I loved superheroes. You know, I loved the Superman. I wore the cape, and I had the magazines and the comic books and watched the movies. And I think about age 7 or 8, I realized that all things being equal, I probably wasn't going to ever be able to fly. And so I became interested in real-life superheroes. What I felt like was a real-life superhero were geniuses. Right. And so in school, we'd learn all about these guys like Thomas Edison and Ben Franklin, these people who've done amazing things, right, in history. And about the only thing I ever remembered from the whole Thomas Edison lesson was that he didn't sleep. That was my take home from Thomas Edison.
He used to sleep in his office most of the time.
And that's what we all were all taught, that he never slept. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to try it. Yeah. When I was fourth grade, I went home and got all my books in my bed and turned on all my lights, and I stayed up all night studying.
That's crazy.
Yeah, until about 10 o'clock the next morning. Yeah, because my fourth grade teacher, Miss Brake, did not like it at all. She said, "Wake up, Mr. Bates." And I said, I'm just a little bit sleepy. She said, "What's the problem?" I said, "Well, I didn't get any sleep last night because I stayed up studying." Right. She said, "Well, what do you think you're doing?" And I said, "I'm just taking a cat nap." She said, "Why are you taking a cat nap?" And I said, "Well, that's the way geniuses operate."
Wow.
I'm trying to be a genius. And she looked at me and she said, "You are not a genius." And it broke my heart. And I think a big part of my life, a lot of I consider her one of the first people that really clued me in that I wasn't special. Yeah. And then my life has been a series of events of basically people telling me that you can't do this, and me saying, yes, I can. And so that's been the driving force behind me.
I really like that. And when you talk about what drives you is people telling you that you can't do it, and you go ahead and do it. Sometimes we think you're just being aggressive and you just try to get back to people, but it ignites something in you. And that reminds me of something that happened to me when I was in second grade. I grew up in Africa, in Kenya, where when you're born, you learn the tribal language, and then you go to school, then they teach you English from second grade. And I remember when we learned the alphabets, and we started learning some real words, and the teacher went to the blackboard. That's what they used to use, and he wrote the word table, T-A-B-L-E, and he said, "Who can pronounce this word?" And nobody raised their hand, and I did, because again, I was a big mouth, and I messed it up. Really, I did. So I just went with the alphabets. T is A-B-L-E, and I said tabli. And man, he chewed me up. He made fun of me, and he made fun of my dad and my mom, and everybody went on and on. And I was in second grade. I was like, what's this about? And it really hurt me. And that came back to me when I was in sixth grade. Again, I went to a school where most of the teachers couldn't speak English very well. And I decided to learn how to speak English. So I'll sit next to a radio, and I'll listen to it for hours and hours, and then I'll try to imitate the way they were speaking, because people on the radio could speak very well. And that's how I learned how to speak English. So I know the power of telling people, people telling you that you cannot do it. So I think this is very relevant to the book that you've written about You're a Genius, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So you started out in art and music. So here you are, a kid who is basically a genius, but you get drawn into art and music. What attracted you to that?
What attracted me to art and music?
Art and music, yes.
Again, it was, I think anyone who, I think I was born with a natural bent toward music. You know, if there was an instrument in the zip code, I was banging on it when I was a kid. So I always loved playing music, and I always loved, even if I did it poorly, I wasn't afraid to make noise on an instrument. And so that's what I grew up doing. Yeah. And it's always been a dream of any kid, I think, not just me, but whenever they're playing an instrument as a kid, is that you want to grow up and be a rock star.
Yep.
And again, I made the mistake of opening my big mouth and telling people that I wanted to be a rock star when I grew up. And what did they tell me?
You can't.
You can't do it.
And you did it.
And I did it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So in the last, I believe, 10 years, you've transitioned from art and music to healthcare.
Yes.
So what triggered that?
Again, well, I had an event in my life where I fell. I hurt myself, and I won't go into great detail, but I injured my back, and I wasn't able to walk.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, for about a year. And it was, you know, for some people, I was lucky because I recovered. For some people, it's a catastrophic injury that, you know, you're in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. I was lucky enough that the surgeries were successful, and I regained, you know, the ability to walk and kind of continued with my life. But as I was laying in the hospital, wondering what I was going to do with my life, I had 2 small children at home, and I just took stock. And I decided that I didn't want to grow old playing music and let, you know, someone else raise my kids, basically. So I decided, you know, I had a good run, and I wanted to do something else with my life. So music has always been and always will be important to me. And even like a couple months ago, I'm going to throw in a plug, I just had 5 cuts on Ethan Cole's new record, which just came out in Nashville about 2 months ago. Wow. So I'm still out there making music. I'm just not the one singing it.
Right.
So.
Okay, that's amazing. So it brings us to the main subject, really. So you've written a book. It's called You're a Genius, How to Master the Secrets of the Creative Elite. Now, tell us about that.
The creative elite.
Yes.
You know, I've always, like I said, I was always interested in genius, in the whole idea of people who are extraordinary, that do extraordinary things. And so this book is about, it's all about breaking down the habits of famous people, of people who we widely consider to have and possess genius, and to use it to create. And what I've done is I've taken a look at not all of them, but a great deal of famous people, and broken down their habits and found connections. And what I've tried to come up with is a manual of sorts of how you, as a creative person, can use the techniques and the strategies that other famous creative people have used to spark and stimulate your own creativity. And I think I've done a good job of that with this book. because I'm not relying on my own success
Right.
to write this. I'm actually relying on the success of Mozart and Elon Musk and all these people that we can all sit here and agree that they're a genius.
Right.
I can't imagine a world without a light bulb.
Yeah, to be a
Someone
terrible
made it.
place.
Right.
Yeah, so besides Ben Franklin and Thomas Edison, and you just mentioned Elon Musk, who else do you follow? Someone who's alive and it's a genius according to you.
Myself, obviously.
Course. I thought he would say me, but
And Isaac.
yeah, I
Isaac, of
lost
course.
it.
I just wanted to say, one of the people that I really like to talk about is Mozart, and because, like I said earlier, whenever I was a kid and I went into my 4th grade class and I got chewed out by Mrs. Brake because I thought being a genius meant I couldn't sleep. That illustrates the fact that people who have and possess genius are some of the most misunderstood people in our society, and they shouldn't be, because in education, well, let me rephrase. In our society, we value genius and we value creativity above all else.
We do.
But we teach it the least to our children.
Yep.
So we value it, but we don't teach it to our children. And that's, to me, it's kind of a travesty, a waste of our potential of children, because if you think about it, let's say, let me just give you an example. Let's use Elon Musk. At some point, and I'm going to give you the Cliff's Notes versions because I'm not an expert on Elon Musk by any stretch of the imagination. But at some point as a kid, his parents gave him a computer. 4 or 5 years later, he developed a video game. He was just a kid, but he sold that video game and made a lot of money.
Yep.
And his parents probably thought, "Isn't that cute?" He made money with this computer that we got him, And then a couple of months later, he's banging away on the computer. His parents go, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm making a bank." And they said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "I'm starting an online bank. In the future, banks are going to be online. Everyone's going to transfer money online. We're going to do it from our computers." And they said, "That's cute." But they probably ignored him. They probably thought, they may have patronized him a bit. But he created what we now know as PayPal. Sold it for millions and millions of dollars. And then, at some point, his parents said, "What are you going to do next?" He says, "Well, I think I'm going to start a car company." And they said, "What, are you crazy? You've never been interested in cars. Why would you want to start a car company?" And he said, "Well, it's the only way I'm ever going to make enough money to get to Mars."
So what you're saying is that he was the potential was ignited at some point.
At some point, it was not discouraged.
It was not discouraged. Now, for you, of course, by being told that you cannot do it, someone triggered that, and that has been premise of your life. It doesn't happen to everyone, and probably if Mrs. Brake was nice to you, probably you would not have done all these things. So, you should probably thank her for that.
I do.
But now,
That
this brings us back to really the message in your book. It talks about unlocking the genius.
Yes.
Can you share with us what are some of the things we need to do? Because not each one of us is going to be like Elon Musk. And some of us, we are already adults and we don't think we are genius. Some people doubt themselves. Some people think they cannot do it. They're not strong enough. They're not smart enough. Even entrepreneurs. So what are some of the things we can do to unlock our genius? That high-level ability to be able to do what we set our minds to do.
That's a very good question. One of the things that we can all do is train ourselves to think the way that other geniuses think. And remember when I said that that geniuses are generally misunderstood. Well, see, I'm not arguing that a genius is something that can't be attained. And when I was a kid, that's what I was taught, that you're never going to be special. You know, that's what I was told when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like, as a kid growing up in South Arkansas, every time I tried to do something that I tried to dream, there was always someone there to slap my hand and tell me that you can't do that. And for me, unlocking genius is more about realizing the potential, realizing that you are special, and you and I were talking about this earlier, that everyone has a jam.
They do.
Something that they're good at, something that they're special at. And I would say the vast majority of people do have something that they're special at. That's why we have entrepreneurs.
Right.
That's why we value high-level entrepreneurship like we see with Microsoft, with
Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy, oh my gosh, I could talk for an hour just about him. Amazing son of an immigrant, you know.
So you talked about several things that we can do. Thinking is one of them. So let's talk about habits. And I don't know if you've done this, but what are some of the habits of highly successful people, whether we call them genius or not? They're genius in their own area of expertise. What are some of the habits that we can borrow from them as regular entrepreneurs so we can start applying those habits and see if we can make something for ourselves in our businesses?
Okay. One of the keys is consistency. Whatever it is that you're good at, you choose the thing that you're the best at, that makes you special. And then you work to become the very best at that one thing.
Right.
For me, early, it was the guitar. I started playing the guitar. Everyone thought it was cute. But at some point, I realized, hey, I'm one of the best guitar players I've ever heard. You know, and I would go and play these shows and stuff, and people would go, oh my gosh, you're one of the best guitar players I've ever heard. And it was because of the fact that I got up every morning and did nothing but play the guitar.
So consistency.
For 10 hours a day.
Right.
You know, so there's an early component of genius that comes from just repetition and focus on that thing that you're the best at. So whatever it is that you're the best at, you need to do it consistently every single day, work on it until you're blue in the face.
Okay, good. Consistency and being focused. All right, one more.
One more?
Give us one more habit. I'll ask you a question.
Go ahead.
What's your take on passion? You find something that you're really passionate about. It doesn't make sense to most of the people, but you feel like you need to pursue that. You can't see what it's going to become a month from now, 2 years from now. So for someone who has a passion, they feel they need to do that thing, especially in the business world. What kind of advice would you give that person?
A person
who has a passion, for something. They want to pursue that passion, and especially if it has something to do with helping people. But nobody seems to understand it.
Well, I'm going to answer both of your questions right now. You have to put your why first. And your why cannot be money focused. It has to be people focused.
Like that.
You can't go through life focused on how much money can I make doing this. That's got to be the furthest thing from your mind, because money doesn't motivate me. It doesn't motivate most people. I would say the vast majority of people, money doesn't motivate them. However, helping someone is for me anyway, and we talked about this earlier, it's a far more consistent motivator. Yeah. So you have to know why you're doing what you're doing, and you have to focus on why you're doing it every single day.
Awesome. And money, of course, is just a tool and a resource to help you to help more people or get where you want to go.
Yeah. Money is will flow toward naturally if you're doing all the right things. If your why is correct and your motivations are pure, the money will flow to whatever it is that you're focusing on.
Totally agree. So let's get back to you. Now, you move from music and art, you are in healthcare. What's the next big thing for you? I'm just curious, because you seem to be getting triggered by some kind of events. We tell you, you can't do this. So I'm just curious, what do we need to tell you can't do so you can do it? Or has someone already told you that you cannot do something that you're planning on doing? What's the next big thing for you?
I'm not sure, you know. That's a good question, though.
So you're running a company right now, right? Tell us about that.
My company?
Yeah, your current company.
My current company?
Yes.
Well, I'm not running a company right now.
Okay.
I'm paying someone else to run a company for me.
That's even better. So you own a company. All right. We want to be like you. So that means you have all the time to do the next big thing. I'm just curious because you're an interesting guy.
I am in healthcare, though.
Yes.
I'm a therapist.
I know you're in healthcare, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm an occupational therapist.
Yeah.
And so I'm out seeing patients every day. I'm doing home-based care. Yeah. And then this is not the most glamorous subject to get into, but I'm going to just throw it out there. I'm an expert at urinary issues. And so I work with lots of patients that have urinary incontinence and all kinds of problems with urinary issues. Okay. And someone told me I couldn't do that too. So here we go.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's talk about your book. Now, I think this is an incredible book that we should get on the hand of everyone who can read it.
Absolutely.
I believe so. I looked at it. It has good information. It's fairly priced for those who got curious and you got on Amazon. It's just going for $10. And I asked Doc if he'll be okay with me proposing this to you. So if you can go to Amazon, get this book. It's called You Are a Genius, How to Master the Secrets of the Creative Elite. And just get it from Amazon. It's just $9.99, a very, very easy read, but very, very powerful. So just do that for me. I'll really appreciate that. So let's go to the closing remarks. So we have these people here listening to you and watching you right now. What one piece of advice would you give them? Because these are dreamers. They are people who really want to accomplish great stuff for themselves and the people that they love. They want to live a life of significance and probably leave a legacy for their families and generations to come. So what one piece of advice would you give to all these entrepreneurs?
Here's what I love about creativity. If I said, name someone who you think who's one of the most creative people in the world, what would you say?
I'll go with Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, he's a great one, isn't he?
Yeah, he's my hero.
You said Jeff Bezos earlier?
Yeah, Jeff Bezos is he's a genius in the sense of getting resources together, thinking ahead, being ahead of the curve, and he's an all-round guy. I mean, he's in technology, is in retail, he's an all-round guy. But Elon Musk is a guy who can zone in and zero in on something, and even when people don't understand it, I mean, somehow I believe him, and I know something good is going to come out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the common denominator, though, is that word, creativity. That's the common denominator. So when I told a friend of mine, he's a business guru, and he said, "Why are you speaking at the ACA? What does your book have to do with business?" And I said, "Wow, you obviously haven't read my book." Thanks a lot, friend.
Yeah.
Because the most common denominator of all entrepreneurship is that creative spark. That's what we value the most. And if I asked you to name, you could name genius after genius after genius, and or entrepreneur after entrepreneur after entrepreneur, and they're synonymous. So in order to get the most out of what I have to say is value the genius in yourself and focus on the thing that you do the most, the thing that you do the best, and come at it every day consistently.
Awesome.
That's it.
All right. Thank you. So it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you
been a
very much
pleasure
for being
talking
here
to you,
today.
Isaac.
So Doc Bates, everybody go ahead and get this book from Amazon. We'll be back for Q&A here in a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.